everybody? Happy Wednesday. Hope we're all doing well out there. Got an update for you today on that weather system that is unfolding already in California, where we've actually had a tornado touchdown today just outside of Los Angeles, which is pretty remarkable to see. But I'll tell you, this is really a bit of a spoiler alert to what I expect over the next couple of days across the continental United States. And let me tell you, this storm system, it is going to track all the way from the west coast to the east coast and likely bringing tornadoes for a lot of different states. So we're going to break that down for you. We're also going to break down just how much rain some of us are going to see. We're going to definitely have some flooding out of this system as well. And then, of course, we will also talk about a little bit of snow on the way and that temperature swing to those spring-like temperatures that I do expect to overtake the second half of this work week. We'll also touch briefly on what we can expect more into the long term, past about a week out. But the main focus of today's video will definitely be this big-time storm system getting unfolding as we speak. So, with all that said, if you haven't already subscribed, definitely consider doing so, and go ahead and like the video as well if you like it. But let's go ahead and get into your forecast. So right now, we do have some showers kind of moving here across the southeast here in Charlotte. We just kind of actually had the sun poke through a little bit outside, but it's been a pretty cloudy, dreary day for much of the Carolinas, Georgia, Tennessee, where we've seen these rain showers move on through. And right now, kind of set up shop from about Knoxville, Nashville, all the way down through Columbia, South Carolina, and through Florence, South Carolina as well. But luckily, this is going to continue to move on east and south and begin to dissipate as we go through the rest of the night. We also have some showers and a couple of storms even up here through kind of the Midwest, and then back out west where we have that big kind of story maker, if you will. If you look down here towards LA, some of these showers here have actually produced a tornado today. So really some just crazy stuff ongoing out there. And if we look at satellite, you can really see how crazy that is out here into California. You see this low pressure system continuing to barrel inland, and with that very strong flow, that helping to create that wind shear, and you're already getting tornadoes out west. Other than that, we do have, of course, those clouds and rainy conditions back east like we just got done talking about, and as we've been forecasting for the past couple of days. Luckily, though, most of this will clear out by tomorrow, and we should have a nice day in the east at least tomorrow. Different story for some of you back out towards the plains, though. So taking a look at those hazards, just like I kind of predicted yesterday, we do have some flash flood watches now issued here for the Ohio River Valley area. This goes all the way from kind of Louisville, Kentucky, down through Cape Girardeau, St. Louis, northern Arkansas, and even northeastern Oklahoma. And these places are going to get a ton of rain out of this system, and I'll talk about that later on in the video. Looking at tonight's temperatures and that temperature forecast, a pretty warm night, especially compared to the last couple. Down here into the southern plains, we're not going to crack below 60 tonight thanks to that warm air being advected northward ahead of this storm system barreling eastward. And then even down here into the mid-Atlantic and southeast, a really warm night compared to what we've had, likely not getting really any lower than 45 for many of us here in the mid-Atlantic tonight. Looking at tomorrow, we get a really nice rebound into the spring-like temperatures here throughout the southeast, and that is going to help to aid the development of some severe storms back here into Texas and Oklahoma. But for those of us east of kind of that area, it'll just be a really nice day, and we'll get to take advantage of this really warm spring-like weather. So definitely make sure you get out there and enjoy it tomorrow because we do have those storms on the way. So what I'm going to show you now here is this map. This shows kind of just energy in the atmosphere, and I want to show this to you just to show you the overall pattern that we're dealing with before we get a little more in depth with the precipitation. So what you want to watch here is this big trough out west. That's that storm system that I'm talking about, and you're going to see this begin to move eastbound and eventually consolidate into low pressure here and move up through the Great Lakes. So as I move this ahead, you see that trough continue to dig out west before eventually ejecting through the Rockies, and we get this low pressure to form. So with this big old trough here, that is going to help to create those severe storms to the south of that, where it taps into that warm Gulf of Mexico moisture, rather, before eventually this trough continues to move off to the north and east, and we just get a really big kind of low pressure system to develop in that region and help to bring some rain. Now looking later on, we look to continue this pattern. As you'll see, more waves of these troughs will continue to eject eastward, and that could set up some interesting weather for next week that I'm not going to go too in-depth on today, but definitely keep your eye out, especially up in the northeast for next week, where some models have been hinting at kind of a big-time storm here, as I'll kind of tease here a little bit. You can see this big trough off the coast, but we'll watch the pattern. But nonetheless, I just want you to see that this pattern is going to continue of kind of these waves of storms working their way across the country over the next week or so. So now looking at precipitation, if we move this ahead into time, going into tonight, we continue that kind of rainy, stormy weather here across the Midwest. But the big story is going to be going into tomorrow. You'll see this big area of storms develop tomorrow evening along the Ohio River Valley, where we have that flash flood watch already issued. And with that, you're going to get this low pressure to develop and really strengthen. And with that, on Thursday, we'll have the chance of some evening big-time storms out towards Texas and Oklahoma. And then Friday, that threat is going to shift back here towards Louisiana, Arkansas, and Mississippi. And then Saturday, that line of storms is going to eventually work its way into the Carolinas, where we could even be dealing with some severe weather. And then while that's all ongoing, we're likely going to get some big-time snow here into the kind of Great Lakes region, and even up into the higher terrains of the Northeast, with areas getting rain south of there, before finally we clear out of this storm system as we finally kind of wrap up this weekend. So going a little more in depth here, we'll start with the severe weather aspect of this, and I'll zoom this map in as much as I can for you here. So starting off tomorrow, we do have that slight risk of storms becoming severe here from Oklahoma City down towards Dallas, but that marginal risk where you at least have a chance goes really all the way up here towards Springfield, Illinois. So a big time area here having a chance of some of those storms tomorrow. And if you look at the tornado probabilities here, pretty low, but there is a small area here to the south of OKC, kind of around the Wichita area and down towards Fort Still. But the big story, I think, tomorrow is going to be the hail, where you can see we have this area that can see really damaging hail there through Oklahoma and Texas. And then wind, also a threat, although not as big as that hail threat. As we then get into Friday, that threat then shifts further to the east. You can see here with that kind of bullseye, or that enhanced risk being right there over the Jackson, Mississippi area. But again, that slight risk expands all the way over towards Birmingham, Nashville, down here towards Cape Girardeau and Paducah, and then back here towards kind of eastern Texas as well in that threat. But the marginal risk, and this does go through the overnight Friday as well, I should add, goes all the way as far east as Atlanta, where we could see some severe storms overnight Friday and into early Saturday morning. So showing you the radar here, we'll start out here for tomorrow. You can see the models are hinting at the chance of some of these storms firing up out here into Texas and Oklahoma. And again, the big threat with these are going to be the hail. So this will likely be really even overnight Friday, but we'll have the chance of some of these big time storms getting tall enough and strong enough updrafts that we get that damaging hail to set up shop for this area of the country before eventually that clears out. And then going into Friday, we get another round of those storms back here towards Arkansas, Louisiana, and Mississippi, and those could, produce a lot of threats, including tornadoes. I think Friday will be the big tornado day here for much of this kind of area that we just looked at that was in that enhanced risk. So moving on ahead here and looking at the supercell composite, again, going into tomorrow evening and afternoon, you can see that kind of flare up here over Texas and Oklahoma. And this just means that some of these storms could grow in strength, get strong enough, grow in size, and that helps to produce that large hail that we've been talking about before. Then going into Friday, we see another kind of increase in those odds back here again towards the east, where we will have that enhanced risk on Friday. And again, those storms could even produce tornadoes on Friday. Probably not as much tomorrow, but definitely Friday, I think. So moving this over to the southeast now, I'm going to show you the Euro model here just because our mesoscale models still don't go quite far enough out here. But you can see the general idea here. Friday evening, this big line of storms and maybe even a couple supercells out here towards Louisiana, Little Rock, Jackson, Mississippi, seeing those strong storms on Friday. And then overnight Friday, that line of storms continues and doesn't really look to weaken all that much overnight Friday. So we could be dealing with severe storms in Birmingham, down here towards Mobile, Panama City, and even over towards the Atlanta area. And then going into Saturday morning, that line of storms still looks relatively strong, moving through Greenville, Spartanburg, Asheville, the Tri-Cities up towards Tennessee, Atlanta still seeing those storms, and then of course that will stretch back down towards the Gulf of Mexico as well in the early morning hours of Saturday, before then getting into Saturday afternoon. Whatever is left of these storms look to move over towards the Charlotte, Fayetteville, and Greenville, North Carolina area, as well as coastal South Carolina and Georgia. So showing you the supercell composite for these areas, you can see again Friday we do get that kind of increased odds back here to the western half of the southeast here. But as we go ahead and move this into Saturday, you can see we even keep that thread here along the Gulf Coast overnight Friday. But even into Saturday afternoon, we get another flare up of those odds here into the Carolinas, where honestly one of the trends with this system has been to slow it down, and with that we could potentially work with more daytime heating into the Carolinas here with this line of storms as they move on through, although I think they'll be more broken up by the time they get to the Carolinas. So maybe not as widespread severe weather in the Carolinas, but if any storm can get going, it definitely has an environment that it could become strong to severe. So talking about the rainfall totals, again, the bullseye here right along the Ohio River. It looks like 3 to 5 inches of rain here for those areas over the next couple of days. Very possible here, but a widespread 1 to 3 inches of rain here. And I'll draw this again in a different color so you can see it, but widespread 1 to 3 inches of rain here throughout the Ohio and Tennessee River valleys. And then a little less the further east you get here past the Appalachian chain, where the mountains should kind of eat up some of that moisture for you folks there. Talking about snowfall up here into the Great Lakes, looks like a pretty widespread 1 to 3 inches out of this event. Isolated places, won't be surprised to see 3 to 5 inches, so nothing too crazy here, but definitely notable amount of snow as that rolls on through the next couple of days. And then even into the Northeast this weekend, we'll see that snow up here into ski country, and especially up here into northern Maine, where even though we're in March, still plenty cold enough up there in Maine to see some big time snow. And some of us could get close to a foot of snow here in northern Maine with this storm system. So talking about those temperatures, again, going into tomorrow, it looks like a big warm-up I see here throughout much of the southeast, as we have that warm air continuing to lift northward and really helping to bring in those warmer than average temperatures. And that looks to stick around through Friday as well. Before going into this weekend, we begin to moderate a bit, especially Sunday, I think, and then going into next week, we do have that potential of another cold shot of air. But from now till really early next week, through that time period, looks very spring-like for much of the east, but especially the southeast here in kind of that circled area. So, moving ahead now and looking at the Climate Prediction Center forecast for 6 to 10 days out, they are projecting warmer than average temperatures being pretty likely here through the southeast, but colder than average, especially back west, but really throughout the entire northern tier of the country. So, we look to be pretty split here over the next week or so, where that southeast ridge kind of holds on and keeps us warm in the southeast, but we get shots of cold air through the northern tier of the country. And then looking at precipitation, it looks to stay very active precipitation-wise. Again, as we get these rounds of storms across the country, I don't think many of us will really miss out on any rain here over the next 6 to 10 days, as this pattern that we've has been pretty active, really, and a lot like we saw in February continues here through March for many of us. So with all that said, again, if you enjoyed the video, definitely consider hitting that like button, and if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe. But with all that said, hope you all have a great rest of your Wednesday, and I will see you all tomorrow.